Hey there everyone, welcome back. My name is Jared Fink and this is Fretboard Music Theory. Today we are going to tackle the task of learning what our notes are of each string on the instruments. Alright, so the first thing you've got to do is memorize what the open strings are. And what I mean by open is if you're not pressing down on the fretboard and you just pluck the string, you're hitting an open note. We're going to start with the mandolin. Even though there's 8 strings on a mandolin, they are in pairs, so there's 4 strings as far as we're concerned. The very top one, this is the first one, open, is going to be a G. The next note is going to be a D. The next one, which is usually just solid steel, there's no copper or no brass on it, that would be an open A. And finally, our highest string is an open E. So when it comes to memorizing what our strings are, remembering that it's a G, D, A, E, there's many different memorization tricks that you can do. And honestly, I wouldn't say one is better than the other. A simple one that I would say is if you can just memorize that your first string is a G and then the next one is a D. So just memorize those 2 strings. Don't worry about the other 2. And once you have those down pat, all you simply have to think is, okay, I've got a G, I've got a D. Now I'm going to start the pattern over, but I'm just going to go up 1 letter. So instead of being a G, what would be the next letter higher? An A. So there's an A, and then instead of being a D, what would the next letter higher than D be? An E. So we have G, D, A, E. Moving on to the guitar. Now, the reason that I started with the mandolin was actually very specific. If you can memorize the order of the strings on the mandolin, you're more than halfway to memorizing what the notes are for open tuning of a guitar. Your lowest string is going to be an E, followed by an A, followed by a D, followed by a G. Now we're going to stop right there and we're just going to focus on those first 4 strings. Did you notice something interesting? I'll say it again. We have an E, an A, a D, and a G. Did you get it? Yes, that's right. It's the same as a mandolin, just backwards. So on a mandolin, you start with a G at the top, you would go down to your D, and then you go to your A, you go to your E. Well, if I were to do a guitar backwards, G, D, A, E. Let's check it out here. So if I pluck the low string on the mandolin, and then of the 4 strings on the guitar, this high one, it's a G. Next one on the mandolin, now I'm doing it backwards on the guitar, but alright. What I love about stringed instruments is if you can learn one instrument, there's patterns and tricks of how to learn the other ones because they're all tuned very similar to each other. So we have our E, our A, our D, and our G. Okay, so we've established the similarities between guitar and mandolin. We still got 2 more strings to do on the guitar here. So as we continue down the guitar, now we're going to be hitting the 2 strings that are solid steel looking. The first being a open B. And then our last and final string is an open E. It's an octave higher than our very lowest string. So that's really an easy one to memorize. Is on a guitar, you've got an E string on the bottom, and you've got an E string on the very top. And there you go. The most difficult one for me was just remembering there's a B string here. That one, I guess, if you wanted to have a tip on remembering it, is this B string, for some reason, it's always the hardest to keep in tune when you're playing chords or just playing guitar in general. For some reason, this B string is the one that always gets out of tune. So just think of it as that's the one that sounds like a B. It's always buzzing. So finally, we've got one more, and that would be the banjo here. So the banjo is kind of unique in that it's tuned to an open major chord. And what I mean by that is when I strum it, it plays a chord. Like, you don't have to fret it at all. Pardon the pun. It just happens to be the major chord G. Okay, so let's dive in to the open strings. Our first string is generally considered a drone string, meaning it doesn't get fretted all that often. It's usually just played open. So this one is an open G. That's the note. All right, so our first open note on the nut down here is going to be a D, followed by a G, followed by a B, and lastly we've got another D. So how do we memorize that one? Well, similar to the guitar, instead of having an E for this string right here, we're going to have it as a D. But similar to the guitar, it's going to have an octave for the high string. So we have two Ds. We have a D and a D. Now, if you're thinking in terms of the guitar, what follows the D note? Well, a G. So, in a sense, the banjo is tuned similar to a guitar, only we're starting on a D, we're going to a G, and then on a guitar, the next one would be a B, and that's what we have on the banjo as well. And then back to the octave, which is on the banjo, a D. So we have on this lower register, we've got a D, G, B, D. And if we add in the drone string, it'd be a G, D, G, B, D. And there you have it. That is the open notes when you're not pushing down on any of the frets of all three of these stringed instruments. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do it. And if you have other musicians in your life that would benefit from this, please share the video with them.